Hey everyone, good afternoon and happy Thursday. I'm Darrell Whittinger, the meteorologist at Central Oregon Daily News, and across the high desert today we've had tons of sunshine. Each one of these cameras painting a similar picture, and each one of them showing not a cloud in the sky except for one little cloud over Jefferson. You can see that in the Lake Billy Chinook camera. Now going forward through the next couple of days, we keep this sunshine, add a few clouds, and even more warming is expected. Today was just the big jump in temperature that put us from the 60s with a few 70s into the 70s with some 80s by this afternoon and evening. Winds won't be as strong, and we're staying extremely dry here across the high desert through the next couple of days. So it's time. Let's do a deep dive into your most reliable forecast. We'll look at what's been changing, how those changes are impacting us, even check in on the drought monitor, and looking to see if there is any more rain in the next 7 days. All that and more coming up in the next several minutes, so go ahead, buckle up. It's going to be fun. Let's start off with just look around the big picture. This is what's been happening here in Central Oregon. We're looking at tons of sunshine. It's going to be much warmer and it's going to be dry. And what's happening is that high pressure that's out over the Pacific Ocean, the one that's just over my head right here, that is expanding and it's broadening and it's strengthening. And as it expands over the Pacific Northwest, we've already started to get those impacts. Tons of sunshine, the gradual warming trend, but all that continues. Even with that very weak low over San Francisco, that's less of an actual low pressure system and more of technically it is a little bit lower pressure in that area. But this dome of high pressure is just anchored over the west coast and over the Pacific Northwest. This is the driving feature that's really going to take control of our weather pattern, keeping us unseasonably warm, then just getting hot early next week. And this big warming continues. 80s with a few 90s this week, and by next week, 90s and some 80s. And that jet stream just stays well to our north, keeping any systems from rolling this way. Now, by the middle of next week, the jet stream starts to flatten a little bit. Doesn't mean it breaks down. Doesn't mean it goes away. Doesn't mean another system rolls into the region. Just some extra clouds and no rain in sight, and temperatures dip down just a little bit. That's pretty much it. Now, technically, there is another system that's going to be rolling in at that time, just not a strong enough one to actually bring any precipitation to the high desert. We've already looked at these cameras, and here's some cameras we haven't seen yet, but you can pretty much guess what they're showing. Dry roads, tons of sunshine, a lot of shadows on the ground, and traffic is rolling pretty smoothly right now. Now, even through the passes, it looks pretty clear for a drive, and it looks like a gorgeous day to do so across not just Central Oregon, but the entire state. In fact, looking at satellite and radar, you'd think this was a still image. It's not. It's a loop. You have to zoom out pretty far to actually see where some clouds are coming and going, and that just shows the extent of this high pressure ridge. So Friday at a glance, very similar to today. Not much in the way of cloud cover at all, no precipitation in sight, and temperatures warm a little bit more. And not as big of a jump in temperatures as what we've had today, but we're still going from the 70s and 80s into the 80s with a few 70s. So that's a slight bit warmer and unseasonably warm. Now, when it comes to our enhanced infrared satellite imagery, we already partially looked at this with that headlines graphic at the beginning of everything, but our isobars, those white lines, clearly show where the ridge of high pressure is just building into the Pacific Northwest. And so all that activity that's over the Gulf of Alaska, the Bering Sea, and even Canada right now, all that is staying way to our north. That's where the jet stream is, and that's where the track that all these storms are going to take stays way to our north. Meanwhile, high pressure usually promotes subsidence, which means not even much in the way of cloud cover and no real systems developing. But we're also looking at just a light breeze for most of the day. And even as we go forward through the next several days, we really don't catch much at all in the way of cloud cover. And you'd have to look pretty far to actually find some precipitation in the next 7 days. Now, afternoon winds, each afternoon, they do pick up a little bit more. So let's go ahead and look at something a little bit different. This is a little out of order, but I wanted to throw it in there anyways. This is our water vapor imagery. This is also satellite imagery, very similar to visible and infrared stuff that we've already looked at. But what it really illustrates is all that yellow and the faded blue, where the blue and the yellow are meeting together. All that is dry air. The yellow is very dry air, and this high pressure is just pushing that dry air and even warm air into our neck of the woods. And so everything that's to the south of the high pressure over Baja and Mexico, that's not coming anywhere near us. Everything that's way to our north, not coming anywhere near us. the only thing that's really going to be impacting us is this ridge of high pressure and that dry, warm air just building right into the Pacific Northwest. On top of that, when you have cool nights and hotter days each day, relative humidity is directly affected because this is the humidity, the amount of moisture relative to temperature. That's why we refer to it as relative humidity. And basically, the higher the temperature, you can think of a bigger cup or a bigger bucket for water. But we're not changing the moisture content in that bucket. We're just changing the size of it, the volume, the capacity of it. And so when it comes to percentages, how we measure humidity, this relative humidity, the same amount of moisture with that bigger bucket, because the hotter the temperatures are, the more capacity they have to hold moisture. We just get very low relative humidity values, even right now in the teens with a few 20s. Before we get through this weekend, we're expecting some single digits out here. So very dry conditions. And looking at the entire Tri-County area, so far temperatures have topped out in the 70s with 81 in Warm Springs. Sisters just bumped up to 78. Bend is sitting at 79 and Prineville at 77. More 80s are expected. We just haven't seen them yet. And temperature changes reflect that. Look at this, between 10 and 16 degrees warmer than just 24 hours ago. Now tonight it gets cooler. Then by tomorrow we're back into the lower to mid 80s. And keep in mind, tons of sunshine is expected. Very little cloud cover, even each afternoon. Winds do get breezy at times. That's just going to dry out surface fuels even more. On top of that, we have the direct sunshine drying out surface fuels even more. And that heat isn't helping either. It's just drying out the surface fuels. But when we turn our attention to UV intensity, this forecast shows very high UVI and the ultraviolet index, and that means you'll want to pack that sunscreen. Wear a wide-brimmed hat if you're spending a lot of time outside, and just be sun smart. It's that time of the year. Go ahead and use that sunscreen instead of getting burned. And this very high UVI continues all the way through this weekend. Even with Monday, we're catching a little bit of extra cloud cover. It's not going to impact it too much. Still high. Instead of 10, it's a 9. And so a quick look at a forecast model. This is one that really focuses on surface temperature, and it's one I like to use a lot. But we're looking at a cool start with plenty of sunshine, and it's going to be warmer each day. Sitting under this ridge of high pressure, and that high pressure continues to amplify, continues to grow, not just north to south, but east to west as well, or west to east, I should say. And so we have these warmer days with highs well into the 80s, even some 90s possible by Sunday, and still no precipitation in sight. Under this high pressure, we are just staying dry. And it's not just through Sunday that we're staying dry. Going into next week, we go from the 80s into the lower 90s, and that'll be some of the hottest weather we've had all season so far. And it's June. And we're getting that early taste of summer. It's already meteorological summer. Meteorological summer is just flexing its muscles and showing you just how hot it can get, even in June before the calendar switches over to summer on the solstice. So our forecast model keeps us dry under tons of sunshine, and that's just going to be the name of the game as we go forward. The other theme is warming up, then heating up, and still dry through this weekend into next week. In fact, let's just go ahead and get past this and look at the long-range forecast model. I'm just going to keep hitting advance and show you that we're not looking at much in the way of change. Going all the way through Sunday, sunshine. Monday, some PM clouds, mostly sunshine. Tuesday, mostly sunshine. By Wednesday and Thursday, some in and out clouds, mostly sunshine, but that's when we actually get a dip in temperatures. Not going to go too far, still above average at this time of the year, still looking at 80s for the most part, and it's just going to be a warm 7-day planner. Going between now and Sunday at 11 p.m., nada. Now, let's talk winds. It's not too bad. Gusts alone are under 15 miles per hour right now. By tomorrow and Saturday, it is going to get a little bit more breezy, but actual winds are at a light breeze. This is going to be great no matter what you're doing here through this evening, whether you're joining us out at the Sisters Rodeo or just having dinner on the porch or cocktails with your loved ones. Or just hanging out with the kids even at the park. It's just going to be a light breeze, getting a little cool after sunset, but winds only getting a little breezy at times during the next several days. Now, Saturday winds do pick up. Winds are going to be breezy, but that's the biggest change up we're looking at, except for our warming trend slowing down. So that's a pretty good weekend if you ask me. Now, we do need the rain, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But first, let's finish out the forecast tonight. 40s with a few 30s and 50s by tomorrow, 80s and a few spots could still be topping out in the 70s, not much in the way of cloud cover, sunshine, and then 90s by Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday of next week, that's when we get that slight dip in temperatures, but not going too far, still staying way above the average high of 75 degrees. So your weather headlines for Thursday, June the 11th, beautiful June days, cool starts, big warming, and a rain-free forecast ahead. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking to themselves, but Darrell, we need the rain, and if you're in agriculture, I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. If you're just continuing to watch that drought, again, here's the latest, last week's drought monitor. The latest one doesn't show too much in the way of change. A little further to our east, going all the way up through Pendleton, they were downgraded to an extreme drought. Most of us, we didn't change because of that thunderstorm activity we had last week, where we got severe weather pushing through the high desert. That brought much needed rain. In fact, caught us up for the last 30 days. Catching us up barely. I mean, it put us, for the last 30 days, we have 100 to 200% of what we typically get this time of the year. But for the last 30 days, when we look at the last year, we're still abnormally dry, below normal precipitation. And so we do have these worsening drought conditions. It didn't worsen too much this time, but by next week, it's definitely going to worsen. So that is something to keep in mind. And I know we need the rain, and a lot of people know we need the rain. We're not seeing it in the forecast. One thing that we are continuing to really track, though, is that temperature spread. Cool starts are expected, so keep that in mind. But remember, this time of the year, showed you this graphic the last couple of days, really trying to hammer it home. It does not take long for those temperatures inside your vehicles to heat up really quickly. This is just a representation, or this is doing the math for you, showing you just how hot it gets in the car if you do not have that AC running. So make sure you look before you leave the vehicle. Don't leave any fur babies or human babies in the car, because it gets pretty doggone hot in here. Okay, safety first. Now, getting back to our forecast, there is no cloud cover at all. Y'all enjoy this evening. Enjoy the rest of the week. And if you are headed out to the Sisters Rodeo and you see us, wait till we hit a commercial break, say hi. We'd love to talk to you, but that is the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. We'll have the latest headlines and your most reliable forecast. See you then.